Welcome to the Grand Rapids Community College Board of Trustees Budget Work Session meeting on Monday, May 6th, 2024. We will first open the meeting up for public comment. If there is anyone in the audience that would like to address the board, you may do so at this time. Please note that at this time the board will hear comments specifically related to the board agenda today, which is our proposed 2024-2025 budget. If you have a comment, please come to the podium, state your name. I'll remind you that all comments are limited to 3 minutes and the board will not respond to your comments at this time. Seeing none, again, the purpose of this meeting is to give trustees a chance to go over and review and ask questions about the 2024-2025 proposed budget. Our Vice President of Finance and Administration, Lisa Freiberger, is here to present that proposed budget to us. Lisa.
I am. Thank you and good afternoon. I'm going to have Nathaniel Lloyd come up with me, and we are actually going to tag team our way through this presentation for you. We did put a copy of the presentation in front of you in case you wanted it to make notes. I do not believe that went out in your packet. The full budget document that is very similar to what you've seen in the past did go out in your packet, so while we won't specifically walk through this page by page, we are happy to, when we get through the PowerPoint, answer any questions, or if there are things you would like to talk about or you had questions about in the document itself, which provides your full line item budget. We would be happy to answer those for you as well. And then just as a reminder, this is a first look at the full proposed, as it stands right now, 24-25 budget. We are not asking for any consideration or vote on this budget today. We will look towards that in June. With that, I am going to ask Nat to walk us through these first couple slides. You want this?
Yeah. All right. Greetings. Thank you for coming to our presentation. But we're going to start by looking at, as you can see, the fiscal year that we're just ending. We just presented to you the mid-year budget in February. At this point, the theme here is that has very much to do with, I think we did a good job of getting where we needed to go with that budget, but what we can report is that revenues continue to be strong. With the enrollment, as you've heard, has continued to be strong. And now so we had up in the fall, it was up in the winter, and it's up again now in the summer. So we're really happy about that. And so it's been a great year for that. Property taxes continuing to be strong. Interest rate environment continues to be strong no matter what the Fed says. It's not going to fall fast. It can't fall slow enough for us. So we're going to be in a good place. Expenses, there's not a lot to say. And in general, when it comes to an update about expenses, no news is good news. There's no news, which is, in fact, good news. Moving to the next, we'll start off now, talk about coming next year's fiscal budget, 2024-25. Enrollment, while it's continued to be strong this year, for the purposes of budgeting, we are going to keep it flat. That does continue last year's increases and anything that had happened there, but until we start to see the data roll in, we want to keep it flat. And of course, you get plenty of updates from us, and we can always make moves at mid-year. Property taxes, though, they will continue to be, we believe very strongly, they will continue to be strong. And the state aid budget is based on the governor's proposed 2.5%. Looking at salaries and benefits for budgeting purposes, for the employee groups, these are based on the most recent information that we have. For those that haven't closed, we include a basic estimate of where we thought that they might go, but otherwise it's based on what we do know. And then with Meet and Confer, we incorporated a 4% increase as a general guide for budgeting purposes, and we also added a small cushion on top of that because we have that compensation study that you know about. So we wanted to include a margin there just because we don't know what's going to happen. the other thing I wanted to point out here is this state aid, the state health insurance cap. That's how much we can pay out of the insurance costs, and then the rest is passed on to the employees. It's bizarrely low. That 0.1% is less than, since I've been here, probably before that. So we did incorporate that. If we do hear something different, if something happens with that, we'll certainly, again, we have our mid-year to catch it. I don't think even if it did change, it wouldn't change it so significantly that we would be too far out of whack for the overall number. And then, as I'm about to give way to Lisa, and she's going to highlight some of the one-time expenses, some of the ads that we are proposing to have you approve. I'll point out we also reversed last year's one-timers, and then these numbers here are just the summaries of the pages, the slides you're about to see.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
In the preliminary general fund scenario, the continued savings from open positions, could you just talk about like what sort of philosophically, when there's savings there, like what happens with that, where it goes and why?
Yep, absolutely. So we have savings from open positions in a couple different scenarios. One, when we just have someone resigns, retires, leaves us, and it takes us 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks to fill it. So there is savings there. I guess I should back up. We start out budgeting assuming all positions are filled full-time. We have $500,000 that we bake into the budget that is on a separate line for you, that is savings under salaries or controllables. We do the same thing. So we, in essence, estimate $500,000 in savings. There's typically more than that. So there are savings when a position is just vacant from a retirement, a separation of some sort. There are also savings, and we've had a number of them this year, where we have someone in an interim role, and we haven't gotten a full-time replacement. Work has been shifted around, and our provost is a great example of that. We named an interim provost, but that was a position that was filled in an interim capacity for a longer period of time, and those savings will accrue as well. There are some cases where we bring in some temporary assistance, we backfill to a degree, and in those cases, the salary dollars, the budgeted salary dollars are used to do that. There are many other cases where others absorb that work, and it really is a case-by-case basis, depending on what's going on. And those salary dollar savings ultimately will roll into our budget at the end of the year, so they just accrue back to general fund. Does that answer your question?
Thanks.
So as Nat mentioned, we are for 24-25, you'll see proposing a significant number of increases to the budget. It has been a number of years since we have been in this position, with enrollment going up, property taxes continuing to go up, and a positive state aid projection as well. So it has been a number of years since we have been able, other than this past year, to bring you some proposed increases for next year. So we're excited about what we're able to share with you. Here we go. So these are the increases or the new additions that are included in the draft budget, that is the large budget document that is in your hand. These are all the increases. I will certainly call out a few of them. But every increase that we have incorporated is outlined specifically here for you, so we're happy to answer questions on any of them. The couple large ones, IT software, that is simply annual software increases. A large percentage of that is related to our ERP, our enterprise management system. But we have software increases that just continue to escalate year by year, and we're watching that very carefully. Our IT team is doing a great job of doing an audit on all of the softwares that we have and how might we get ahead of that as we move forward. We are proposing to provide next year, and we haven't finalized it yet, obviously, and this is part of the budget process, but we are proposing to look at providing for all of our students, faculty, and staff ridership on the Rapid. So we are in discussions with the Rapid to see what that would look like for us to provide students with free rapid bus transportation when they are enrolled as a student, so when they're here with us, and then provide the same for faculty and staff. Still some details to work out, but we are very excited about that potential.
Something like that be a flat rate on the front end for everyone, or would it be like track against who uses it and be charged?
We are in the negotiation process with the Rapid. We would like to and are aiming towards negotiating a flat rate for a pilot opportunity. And then we'll evaluate once the term of that pilot is done on both sides of that equation and see where that takes us.
Would that also impact parking with the assumption that you could park elsewhere and have the Rapid take us to campus?
Students could choose to do that. Certainly, and we know we've got some parking challenges, and we have been talking a little bit about the ramp, the very large ramp we have in the center of our campus that we know over time we are going to need to address. So if this pilot works well, you're exactly right that might help us alleviate future parking concerns as we look at the longevity of what we now call Ramp A.
In terms of the IT software, is that something that would touch the entire campus, or is it specific to certain departments?
That is a conglomeration of all of the anticipated increases in all of our software contracts. So that touches everything, every corner of the system, from our financial software package to our student record system to classroom software that faculty use in classrooms.
Circling back to the Rapid, acknowledging that you're still working on it, are you hoping that that would be in place for students this fall?
Yes, we are.
Beautiful.
We are also looking at a scheduling software. This one is still being discussed, but wanted to incorporate it into the budget. Our associate deans do a masterful job of managing our course and class scheduling process. We don't have a sophisticated software package at this point in time that's being used, so there is conversation around what that might look like moving into next year. There aren't specific details around that yet, but knowing that it's there, we wanted to incorporate it into this budget proposal. We are also looking at what is called here a change management consultant. We have been having some significant, serious conversations about the future of our PeopleSoft system, our enterprise management system, the systems we use to run all of our financial data, our HR data, our student data across the campus, which is a huge undertaking. We have made no decisions, and certainly this budget isn't driving those decisions. But one of the things that particularly our IT group and I have seen work successfully as systems move towards that evaluation is really bringing a third party in that will help the entire institution, the entire system, look at the way we manage process, so that we don't design a new system to do things exactly the same way the old system does. So that is what that is for, and that would in essence not be a salary ad, that would be a third-party consultant that we would have come in and do that work. We are also very excited, and I'm hoping you'll see that while we have some IT software and getting us ready for a potential ERP conversion, we are very much looking at students in this list of additions. We have had a successful pilot with our family independent specialists from working in partnership with Department of Health and Human Services, and we are proposing to institutionalize that in the budget that we're bringing to you. We do have, and I think it's pretty typical of employers across the universe right now, but we've had an increased number of vacancies and new faculty hires, replacements, retirements. So our advertising and recruiting budget, which is very important, we need to make sure that we're recruiting in the right places and as broad as we need to make sure that we're getting a wide enough pool. Those dollars are just not managing that as we're moving forward. So you'll see an increase there. And then as we go down this list, we are looking at some increases for supplies and materials. We're looking at the possibility of adding a chatbot to our website, which is something that would help students navigate and perhaps work on some of the wait times we have in financial aid and enrollment and some of the other areas just during certain periods of time when there's a large volume of calls. And then you'll see we're looking, still managing some athletic travel with the group that we play with, I'm missing the word, conference that we play in, thank you, expanding laughing during budget presentation. We are still trying to manage that increased travel as our teams are going farther and farther away. We are looking at some additional web development. FAFSA implementation is a consultant coming in to make sure that with all of the changes we've had and continue to have with our FAFSA forms and implementation thereof, that those are spot on. Sign language support continues to grow. We've brought that need to you a couple of times. This is, I think, the third increase, and that is meeting students' needs primarily in classrooms. So something that we're continuing to look at. That brings us to our proposed staff additions. You will see 5 full-time positions here that we are looking to add, as well as some part-time positions towards the bottom of that sheet. We are looking to enhance our focus on staff development. That was an area that we have had a number of years ago, and as we made budget reductions over time, those were where some of the reductions were. We are starting to see, I think, some implications from not having as robust a staff development capacity to offer staff development training as we once had, and certainly looking to enhance that. The adult student recruiter is actually a student enrollment position, looking to focus on adult students in bringing them into GRCC, particularly as the state continues to look at Reconnect and other strategies to engage adult learners. And we are looking at trying to manage our enrollment. Our Title III Associate Director, that is a grant-funded position now. The grant is ending. That position primarily focuses on student support and what we call EAB Navigate, which is a software platform that is designed to support students. Over the term of that grant, we have found that position to be essential, and again, focused on that direct level student support in that system.
It's an early intervention platform directly related to student retention.
We are also looking with our new provost to focus on transfer and completion. So really a definite and stronger focus on our transfer systems and looking to support that with a position. And then finally, the instructional equipment that we have across campus in our classrooms and labs. We have an increased amount of equipment across the institution, and it's getting older. So what we are finding is more and more need for maintenance, and the team that does that is just because of the breadth of the equipment, the amount of the equipment, and the age is not keeping up. So we are looking to add a technician there to help with servicing some of that instructional workforce type equipment. The final positions there are all part-time. As we continue to evaluate the operations of our lakeshore, looking at adding an evening administrator, part-time administrator there for risk management and general coverage while that building is in operation. We have a number of evening classes there and are looking at expanding that. Student resources coordinator, that is a position that already exists part-time, and we are simply trying to institutionalize that. Enhancing some of our IT project management and some support staff in IT, all part-time, what we would call contingent positions.
The position for the Department of Human Health and Services, is the plan, as part of that position, if a person has a case with the DHSS, that will be transferred to this individual?
And that's what's happening now. Yes, we do that in part. So we don't hire somebody, we
Yep.
work with DHHS and we share that cost. And their entire caseload, I believe, is our students, and they live on our campus. They're housed on our campus.
Will that be full-time?
Yep, and it is full-time now.
Is it full-time now? Will
Yep.
it be the same individual who's doing it now?
I believe so.
As far as we know.
Yeah, I don't know that we can guarantee that, but I believe so.
And very similar to the source model, and they dedicate one person, so that case is transferred to that individual, so they can maintain and work with those individuals.
And having that person directly on our campus has been very beneficial for our students.
Yes.
That's, talk about eliminating barriers, that's a great example of how you've done that, so
Yeah.
thank you for that.
And, I mean, it's a retention strategy.
Absolutely.
One more question about that. The consultant, when you say you want to institutionalize it, does that mean make it an annual thing, a permanent position, something we're going to look toward?
DHHS person?
Yes.
Yes, so when we brought that to you before, it was for a 2-year pilot.
Yep.
So we put it in the budget for 2 years, and then in theory, we would have taken it out. But because we want that to be a permanent as much as we can do permanent because we bring budgets annually, but we'd like that not to have to be renewed every year any more than anything else in the budget. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
I have one more question. The change management consultant who will help navigate the PeopleSoft transition, whatever it might end up being, is that relevant to the collection of data, the collection of data that we're going to sort of improve upon so that we can keep it, retain it, maintain it, search it?
Potentially, and so I think what we're trying to do, I mean, theoretically, yes, so part of what we're trying to do is a couple things. One of them is trying to get away from identifying software that aligns with college processes, that identify software that addresses college needs, and then re-engineer our processes to fit into that. And so there's going to be some change that comes along with that. Plus also, we anticipate that this person will do some work in the AI space to see how AI may be able to improve some of our operations. And so all those things will help us from a data governance standpoint as well, which ultimately feeds into the Office of Institutional Research.
Excellent, thank you.
So now we're moving on to the list of what we would call one-time budget additions. So these are non-salary things that are project-based that we would just put in the budget or propose to add for a year. And then, in theory, we would pull them back out next year. So they are for very specific things. ERP is the first one on that list, different from the consultant that will come in and look at process and make sure that we are designing to meet what's coming, AI. What opportunities do we have to redesign process to be more effective, to be more student-centered, to be more efficient? This ERP assessment is very specifically to have people come in and help us with the full evaluation of the system we have now, to help us draft an RFP. This is a major process that we will undertake to move forward in getting us ready and then to evaluate RFPs when they come back. Our phone system across the institution is coming to its end, so we have some hardware needs related to the purchase of new handsets and new phone system hardware. Our LMS system, you've heard about Blackboard and our move to Canvas. We will have a little bit of overlap time as we go through that transition, so we will have a few months where we will be running both systems to make sure that we transition appropriately for faculty and for our students. And then you'll see down that list, we've got some other equipment that needs to be updated. Auditorium, we are looking to get some assistance to get back up to speed on communications writer, looking for some third party to help us get caught up there. Our AI incubator, there are a couple final space upgrades we need to finish up. There are some police equipment that we need. And that brings us to, with, again, everything that was listed there are all of the additions that we are proposing. That brings us to a total revenue over expense picture of approximately $500,000, which brings our ending general fund net assets to approximately $25.3 million in the proposed budget as it stands now.
And Lisa, you have noted on here that that is 19.2% of total annual expense. And the recommended range for the college is?
Somewhere between 15 and 20. It is clearly very entity and board dependent, but 15 to 20 is an appropriate level.
So we're on the high end of that.
We are. Yes. All right, with that, I'm going to turn this back over to Nat to walk through the other funds and some of the highlights there, and then I will come back and close us out.
So now what you're seeing here, we have the plant fund to start. Looking at the Ford Rec Center that has already been approved, that was in the mid-year budget as such. And we leave it on there that as such because we want to just give you the total, have that be on the budget for that amount. And then once we get into a following year, we'll reduce as we go. And that we don't expect either of these two projects to be done in the first year. So you'll see them change over time. The capital outlay, that's a net amount, 16.8 million. So in your packet, you'll see it as 33.5, but there's also an offsetting amount of revenue from the state to cover the other half, which I know you all know the drill, but that's why it's there. The elevator project is the one we have talked about before. We put 1 million into the mid-year budget, and that was taking care of the cost for this year. There's an additional 3 million to bring it to the total of 4, which you would have been expecting. Skipping down for a second, we've got the parking ramp cameras, and then we're just looking at a junior achievement partnership with them to create a BizTown storefront. Now, going back, we're gonna finish, we'll punch up a couple of the plant fund expenses. We've got, really just looking at the middle two, the office renovations, we're talking 3, 4, maybe 5 offices where we're moving them, refurbishing them, that kind of thing, some basic things that happen over time. The Whitehall furniture is the second part, I believe, of the full project where we have had some other furniture come through in the last year. So this is to complete that project.
I have a few questions, if I may.
Sure.
Can you elaborate on the Junior Achievement Partnership, the BizTown?
I can. It's actually very exciting. We're pleased to talk about all of this, but certainly that. We had the opportunity to go out and meet with the Junior Achievement team out at their site off of 96. It's the building with the dome, rocket ship kind of thing, and that looks like the panels are falling off when you come this way on 96. It's my best way to describe it. Inside of that building, they have what they call a BizTown. It's a junior achievement model. It is a village of sorts that has all different storefronts. So there's a Lake Michigan Credit Union storefront. There is a Helena Boss Children's Hospital storefront. There's a utility storefront. There is another bank storefront. There's a Bissell storefront. There are a number of different storefronts. There's a Meyer storefront. In essence, it's supposed to mirror or model a town. There is a city hall, and students, I believe 5th and 6th grade, come in to spend a half a day from across Kent County and beyond. They're not statewide, but close. And students will come and spend half a day navigating life, if you will. They get jobs, they work throughout the town, they interact with each other. We have the opportunity to partner with them, establish a GRCC storefront, and we're, again, in the early stages of developing this, and there are many others working on this as well, but in essence, developing a college curriculum where students would go to college, get a diploma of some sort. We would be able to share materials that they would take home with them, both for themselves and their families. We're toying with the idea of how might it work that if a student goes through, gets a diploma, they could get a salary increase at their job, and then perhaps even have a mini graduation ceremony when they're done with their half-day experience. So there's all sorts of opportunity to really partner with junior achievement and instill college-going culture, but also share GRCC materials with whomever else might be in the home, whether it's older siblings, parents, and others, and really looking at it as a partnership to focus on that college-going culture, but also gives us an opportunity to share GRCC.
And I think, Lisa, from what we've had conversation, 11,000 sixth graders go through this space a year. Is that correct?
I believe so.
And so we see this as being able to touch 11,000 sixth graders about college readiness and college opportunities. And this aligns with the feedback that we've heard from our community engagement conversations at the Hispanic Center and also at the Center for Community Transformation.
So next steps, certainly no action today. We will have another opportunity on the May 20 board meeting. If you've got questions that you'd like us to address for you, we can do that now. We can do that then as well. We would plan on coming back on June 10th for the standard tax levy that we're required to do, as well as consideration of this budget. And then you will also consider separately from the budget the meet and confer salary package, or meet and confer salary compensation, separate vote from the budget. Just a couple other things that we are watching to give you an update on. Certainly paying close attention to the state budget. All 3 versions of that are out now. We have used the most conservative and the earliest release of the governor's budget, which is typically what we incorporate. The House has, which is 2.5%. The House has a 3.3% increase in for community colleges, so a little bit of variation. The Senate has a 2.2 or 2.5% increase plus an additional one-time 2.5% if you meet a list of 5 criteria that you would have to agree to do, most of which we are already doing, that are around co-requisite courses and student information sharing, orientations, some of the stuff that we already do.
Advising.
Yes. So a little bit of variation there. The revenue consensus meeting is on May 17. We likely won't hear anything until after that. Then they will form their conference committee and begin to give us some additional updates. The, I'm going to call it the free community college model that is built in is also very different in all 3 versions of what's been presented. The governor's version was really trying to do that across the board, in district, out of district, with certain payments to students if you were above or below a certain economic index. The House has not done that, but chosen to adjust the Michigan Achievement Scholarship that currently is in place. And then the Senate did a variation of the governor's plan with some fairly significant tweaks, particularly as it relates to out-of-district students. So we are also watching that very closely, as that will have an impact, not necessarily on our budget, but on student affordability and access. So we will keep you updated on that as well. The last thing that I just wanted to share very briefly, as it sort of relates to budget, and some of you may hear, the Grand Rapids Downtown Development Authority is planning another a development plan expansion. There are 2 regions that they are planning on including or adding to the DDA boundary. I don't know if there was anyone here in 2017, maybe, where in 2017, we went through a process where we, instead of opting out of any tax capture, which we were doing prior to that, we opted in 2017, based on a thorough analysis and board approval at the time, to what is called a gain sharing agreement, where we get a percentage, currently 15, soon to move up to 20%, of our tax capture from the entire DDA district back in the form of an annual payment to GRCC. If we do nothing, which is our recommendation, the 2 new areas, one happens to be up around where the current post office is, north of Michigan. The other one is down on, I think, both the east and west sides of Market, where I believe where they are planning to put the new amphitheater. So those are the 2 areas they're adding. If we do nothing, those areas will be added to our current gain sharing agreement, and we will be able to get the percentage capture when those, right now there's no tax base there, but when that tax base eventually accrues. Financially, that makes most sense for us. No action required from you, as when you did the last amendment to allow us to enter into that gain sharing agreement, you anticipated future expansion, but wanted to share that out loud in case A, you had questions, or B, anyone remembered back to what we went through in 2017 and wondered why we weren't sharing an update. So happy to answer questions on that, or any of the documents from a budget standpoint that you have. Both Nat and I, and Todd is here as well, are happy to address anything else that you might have.
Any questions for Lisa and Matt?
Lisa, the ERP evaluation, was that bid on?
It will be. We are at the very, very early stages of that. We had a very small evaluation take place this year, and we're looking forward to those results next month. We will then engage in a much broader conversation into next year, which is why you're seeing some of that come into the budget. So no, we've not bid. We've not even developed an RFP yet.
So how do you come up with $300,000?
Working very closely with our IT team and their expertise in that matter, and really looking, that's not for the ERP itself. That is for bringing in a team to help us evaluate the systems that are there, help us draft an RFP, which will be very, very large and significant, and then help us coordinate the evaluation in response to that. It will take 18 months to 2 years once we make a decision to move from one to the other, because it will literally touch everything that we have here, and all of our data from years and years and years from when we moved from whatever was before PeopleSoft.
And how many years have we been with PeopleSoft, do you recall?
I don't. Since 2000.
So you see, it's
Thank
an
you, Todd.
investment that lasts us a while.
And it's really critical that we do our very best to make sure that we make the right choice, because then we all have to manage it, to live within it moving forward. And because some systems are very different for finance than they are for student financial aid, and it's got to work for both.
Ah, thank you.
Lisa, how does that tie to the change consultant?
As I understand it, the change consultant will come in first and help us look at, in my simplistic head, what it takes to process an accounts payable check. And how many steps do we go through and how we've written that process? Because we may have written something, and that's, a simplistic example, but something so complex that makes no sense anymore.
So it's about process, I get it.
It's
And then
about
the other one's
process.
about change management, okay, got it.
And the other is about the actual ERP
The actual
evaluation.
System itself, got it.
So I think an easy way to say it is to look at processes and see if there's any cleanup that we can do before we start
Before
to
you-
engage in
yeah.
ERP.
Yeah,
And then try to make a new ERP do exactly what we're doing today, which may not be the right answer.
yes. Thank you.
Who lives in Whitehall? What offices are in Whitehall?
There are faculty offices in Whitehall on the lower level and then the top 2 levels. On the main floor of Whitehall, which is where the furniture is potentially going, is a lot of meeting space and student space. So this year, with the budget that was approved this year, we were able to upgrade 3 of the smaller meeting spaces. For next year, we are looking at replacing all of the furniture that is in what we call the reading room, which is an open, quiet, beautiful space for students to go when they've got time in between classes. But what is in there now from a furniture standpoint is primarily what was left over from some of the Davenport furniture that has been a very long time ago. So it's a great, beautiful, quiet space for students to go and study and just relax, but the furniture doesn't meet the needs of students now, so that's what we're looking to do this year.
Thank you, because it does have an old world feel to it, and
Beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
We need to get that furniture changed.
Any more questions? Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Very thorough. Now is the time for final trustee comments. Do any trustees have any comments? Seeing none, thank you trustees, thank you staff, thank you faculty, thank you President Lepper. Meeting is adjourned.
Another comment?
No, not.
No, not this one.